How's it going?
Hey, pretty good. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm here.
That's
Nice.
all we can ask for these days.
That's that's it. I showed up.
This is a an author session,
Yeah,
and I was told that you have your own link for people to sign up for your book.
I do. And Desi is getting that for me. Or
Awesome.
she sent it earlier in the day and she's like, yeah, you got
Ah, right here. Here we go. Perfect. And
it.
so, is this sort of like free for some attendees, free for all attendees?
No, I think anyone that goes to that link signs up to get this book. I think we have like 150. I have a whole bunch of big boxes right next to me here that I'm going to be signing through. So anyone that goes to that link can get it. Um,
Wow.
as long as they're cool people. I mean, we don't send books to uncool people, is part of this. So
So make sure in the comments field say that
yeah,
you're a cool
like,
person.
hey, I'm cool. Yeah, I'm totally cool. So I need this book. And yeah, we're actually, it's not like a book signing where I'm going to like sit here and pretend to sign a bunch of books and then we're going to send you all an ebook. We're going to mail these books to your house.
Gosh,
So
wouldn't that be boring though if it was like, okay, we've got Derek here and you're just like furiously signing books.
yeah,
Like, Derek, we have a question about DevOps. You're like, no, I'm busy. John
I don't
asks if we,
know. I wrote this book. I don't know anything about DevOps, but no, it's
I we have a question for John.
286 pages of goodness here. So
John asks if we already registered to get the book. Do we need to register again at the link in the chat? I
no,
can't imagine that
no.
you need to do that twice.
No, yeah, we won't force you to do something like that, John, but appreciate you asking because I'm sure that there was someone else asking there. And this is just as last year, I was saying during my session today, last year we had, I'm just arranging windows on the screen here. Yeah, we had a book signing live at All Things Open where we were in like the main lobby atrium area of the conference and like 100 people lined up and me and Lee Calcote were sitting there signing books for people. And I'll say funny story from that. So we have this box of Sharpie pens to use and we have like 12 different colors or whatever. Like it was a 12 pack, an 8 pack of different colors. And one of the people in line, I was signing with a purple pen, and one of the people in line was like, could you sign my book, but do not sign in purple ink because I don't like purple ink at all. So you got to
Hmm.
pick another color. But it was, yeah, you get all kinds of people showing up to this. So there are cool people just like that prefer a pen color within this, but I'm gonna sign my first book here. This is All Day DevOps.
Hey,
First book, Feedback Loops, Volume 2 is part of it. So are we gonna do live chat here? I have the
so
Q&A open.
this is a really open session, and I guess it's kind of up to you. To some extent, it's up to the attendees. But this could be a presentation that you'd like to give. We could talk about the process of writing the book or the reception that the book has gotten.
Yeah,
Or I encourage everybody in the audience, I'm sure Derek would agree, ask your questions about, the process of writing a book, about the contents of the book, because you have the author here at your disposal, signing books in different colors of ink,
yeah,
not purple.
yeah.
Um,
I purposely did not pick up the purple pen, although my daughter probably would have, complained that I stole her purple pen.
So Jesse and Desi both have sort of similar comments. What is the book about, and what's the history of the book?
It's about my growing up in the Appalachian Mountains,
Oh,
and
number of attendees is dropping, and no, I'm just kidding.
it's about DevOps. So here's a little story, and I'll kind of go through this as I sign. And excuse me while I don't look at the camera and sign at the same time. I haven't practiced that don't look and sign bit. But so 5 years ago, my colleague Mark Miller and I founded what is the All-Day Devops Conference. And the All-Day Devops Conference was set up in 2016 as a virtual conference. So we were doing and have been doing a large virtual conference every year for the last 5 years. And the reason that we set up, there's more background because we have enough time to talk through it, but the reason that we set this up is Mark and I were going to DevOps Days conferences, other conferences around the industry, and we would meet people like Josh Atwell, John Willis, Damon Edwards, Courtney Kistler, Nicole Forsgren. And I was speaking at these conferences, Mark was speaking, and you kind of see the same speakers travel from one location to the next. So we all got to know each other, but we would run into someone like, oh, I'm meeting Jeff from Red Hat or Amy from State Farm. I was like, oh, cool. Like, how many people do you have in your DevOps practice? And the answer would be anything from, oh, there's like 7 of us, we're small, or there's like 700 of us back at the office, but there's only 2 of us here at Devops Days because, you know, our boss can only afford X amount of payment for the Devops Days, or it required travel, you know, to this location. I can show you the book stack is getting higher here, because I'm slow at this, but so we started off this conference and we said, let's make a conference where all 700 of the people at that company can show up and be part of this experience. And in order to do that, we needed to go online and we need to make it free. And the first year we did this, it was a 15-hour event, and the second year we did it, we turned it into a 24-hour event because we wanted everyone to attend, no matter where they were in the world. And we run 5 tracks for the conference. There's modern infrastructure, there's SRE, Devsecops, CI/CD, cultural transformation. There's a government track now within the conference. All the Q&A is done on Slack, so attendees interact. And so that first year, we started with the concept that 1,000 people were going to participate in this conference, because 5 years ago, that would have been the biggest DevOps conference ever. Even like DevOps Enterprise Summit was only about 500 people at that time, and today it's like 2,000 something. So 13,000 people showed up. 90 days after we started this concept, 13,000 people showed up to the first one. That created All-Day DevOps. And as part of how the conference evolved over time, and what led to the first book and then to the second book is we have, you know, this year we'll have 180 speakers presenting over 24 hours, the 6 tracks that we have plus keynotes. And we, in the first couple of years that we were doing this, I would write up summaries of the sessions that happened. So Lee came and spoke about this, Mary came and spoke about this, you know, our friend Mohammed, and I was trying to think, like I had the picture of the face, but not the name. So our friend Mohammed in Paris, they would present on a session and I would just do a blog write-up like, hey, Mohammed was talking about CI/CD pipelines at this conference. Here's some of what he introduced. Here are some snapshots of slides that he used during the conference. And then we would publish those blogs on the All-Day DevOps site. And so what you get after, you know, weeks of doing this and months of doing this, we have like 30 blogs throughout the year that cover different sessions from the conference. We took all those and combined them into a book so that people can learn about all different experiences from the conference. And so the book is a compilation of This book has 48 chapters in it. So the chapters are things like shifting security left, Devsecops journey in the Department of Defense, why manual verification still matters, sink or swim or sink, why training matters to an SRE practice, building secure and reliable systems, a conversation with Google's SRE book authors, and a whole host of other topics that are done throughout the book. So we highlight the speaker from that particular session, some of the key points that they made and key lessons learned. So it's a good book covering kind of all different, a very wide range of different topics from the industry. And as part of this, another thing that makes All Day DevOps kind of a special experience, let me get more books here.
This is the definition of multitasking right here.
Yeah, I have stacks of boxes.
Nobody can even complain about it because you're signing books for them. And by the way, if you don't know what these books are for, make sure you scroll up in the chat and find the link where you can actually get a copy of these books.
Get a copy. Yeah, so so that's how the book came about, is just a collection of these different stories. But what I was going to say is one of the things that makes All Day DevOps interesting in the way that we put it together was, Mark and I and everyone else has been to tons of different conferences. And on occasion at conferences, you can see what I'll call as vendor pitches or product pitches. And you can pay to be part of conferences, which enable you to come on and do product pitches. But what we didn't want to do was stay awake for 24 hours and hear a bunch of vendors giving product pitches. So we have a no vendor pitch policy as part of the conference. So we have people that work at vendors that are presenting, but they're usually presenting as, DevRel people, like, here's the actual practical stuff that I'm doing that's helpful, not talking about my products per se. And then we have practitioners from, people from State Farm or General Motors Financial or Toyota or wherever they might be, that come and present at the conference. And the kind of cool thing, and you'll see this in the book as well, is whereas some like vendor oriented conferences go, there's this story about like, oh, come here, the Sonatype stories and Sonatype products. And I wasn't using these before and I had this challenge and then I bought this thing and got this solution. And then like this, the miracle story happens. And
the hero,
Hollywood script. And in All Day DevOps, and I think similar to All Things Open, in the way that it's run, is with no vendor pitch policies, you just get like, hey, we started off in DevOps 3 years ago. This is what we learned year one. This is what we learned year two. These are the mistakes that we made. These are the other mistakes that we made. And we're still learning. And you don't get this like glory, like we got to the glory land kind of story, because there is no glory land in DevOps. You just continue to evolve and share as it goes along. So
that's a really good point. And I love that philosophy from a conference perspective. As a conference organizer in sort of the software field, there are so many conferences out there where not only is there like a no vendor pitch policy, but maybe all the talks are sponsored or contributed by vendors in some areas. So
those are pretty easy. If you've been around for a while, those are pretty easy to spot, right? Yeah. If you're new to conferences and kind of new to the space, they might not be as easy to spot.
So I definitely appreciate that. We have a couple questions if you're up for it.
Yeah. Cool.
So John asks, and this question, by the way, ends, hopefully you understand this question. So let's give it a shot. Best kind of questions are
literally ask me anything. And I see like Jesse's laughing in the background. Going,
Do you
Uh,
notice that companies tend to jump on the keyword bandwagon for different types of dev practices, agile, waterfall, DevOps, DevSecOps, etc., instead of taking a look at what is or isn't working in their environment and taking best practices for each style and fitting it into their environment, instead of trying to transform their environment into the keyword practice?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think one that is continually asked across this industry, and especially with the folks that I get to hang around with in the industry. We're always kind of questioning, what are people doing? What's the next thing? Um, at the beginning, there was a lot of, is DevOps real? Is this just for the unicorns out there? Are people using the buzzword or actually practicing? So a couple of comments that and directions that I'll take that. One is that I should like focus the camera down a little more, and then you can see I'm actually signing all these books. I'm not just pretending that I'm signing the books. But so one thing is, I run a survey each year. I've done this for 6 years, and it's the Devsecops community survey. And as part of that, similar for a similar length of time, the State of DevOps report and survey have been run, and you get to see the evolution of the industry in terms of adopting practices. And we ask enough questions within these surveys that you get a sense of, whether you call it DevOps or not, you may be doing the practices. Some people choose, they want to call it DevOps, rally around a term that may help them in their own internals. There's part of just, we have a process to evolve how we develop software. We're not going to call it DevOps. We don't need to call it. Some people, like I'm working with the folks at State Farm. They have a big internal program that they call Disrupt. They use DevOps, but sparingly. And they actually used it. So there was a funny story. They were using it internally, and then someone was like, oh my gosh, I saw there's like some external DevOps conference. I thought that was our word. Like, I thought we had made it up and that was the thing that we were rallying upon. But they call their thing Disrupt internally. That's like a big program there. So I don't think the terminology really matters, but what I do see is that people are taking the practices that DevOps are, that a DevOps practice and what it recommends and what it means to kind of, first map out your value stream, understand where are bottlenecks within your process, where does it slow down, where could it be faster, and some of that is just led from an internal perspective, that we want to be better at what we do, and other parts are built in. We have competitors out there that I've seen in conference presentations their employees have given that says they're getting faster, they're implementing these practices, that we are not, we're getting behind, we're less competitive, we need to catch up. And so there are different motivations that inspire the movement toward this. But I think we're well beyond the DevOps, the thought that it's just a buzzword, that there is enough of the industry that is implementing it and advancing it. And one of the studies I just did with Gene Kim earlier this year, and I was presenting on earlier, was when it comes to a practice like DevOps or DevSecOps, about 25% of the organizations that we surveyed are in what we would consider a more mature state of DevSecOps versus beginning DevOps practices versus we're still stuck on waterfall or agile practices, or slower velocity development practices. Now, that said, the second point that I wanted to make around DevOps and kind of the catch on of the phrase is how many people are using it in their titles. That I think there's a lot of people that decided to go on LinkedIn or whatever and, say, I'm going to call myself a DevOps engineer because I'm kind of doing some part of this, or I'd like to be recognized as doing some part of this, or I could make 20% more money by getting hired somewhere as a DevOps engineer versus a software engineer. And therefore I'm going to jump on that bandwagon because it's economically beneficial to me. That has definitely happened because and started years ago, because we were just seeing a bunch of people in organizations come up with this title when most people are still trying to figure out what it was. And it felt too early for the numbers that were out there. I'm going to grab some more books.
I hope everybody appreciates how hard Derek is working for all of you throughout this session, because it's a 45-minute session and he's hauling books all around. So I'm just going to paste that link one more time so that you can get some of these books out of Derek's house.
Get a new book out here. So any more questions that have come in? I'm happy to.
Actually, there's one from Ed, and this is right up your alley. Is there an ebook version either now or planned?
No, because ebooks are like so passe. No, I'm just kidding. I like to joke a little. Yes, there is an ebook version. So also, I should say just as well as there is an ebook version. If you go to alldaydevops.com and actually register for the conference, right after that page, it comes up with thanks for registering. Here's some cool resources, and the ebook version is part of that. It's a PDF version of the book, so you can have both the physical copy and the electronic copy. Now, I will also say, if you're just like dying to get a hold of this book and you're just thinking, Derek's signing these, but it's going to take me forever to get a hold of it, you could order it on Amazon and it's like $14. But if you want to save your $14 for like a couple of really nice trips to Starbucks or, some of that like great local ramen place or something, for lunch, then don't go to Amazon and buy it. I make zero money off of any Amazon book sales. We basically put it on Amazon at cost as a convenience. But you can, if you want volume 1 in hard copy, it's still on Amazon. You can order that there as well.
Awesome. Yeah, we previously did a book signing session where Derek was autographing the ebooks, but then we had to buy him a new laptop because his screen got all covered with markers.
Yeah.
So I'm much happier that we're doing the physical copies this time.
I was eating chocolate and it got all over the screen and everything. It was just a complete messy situation.
By the way, I've noticed that we do have more attendees who have joined recently. So this is a very interactive session. If you have any questions for Derek about the process of writing the book, about DevSecOps in general.
I'm going to switch pen colors over to red right now. Just changing things up, David. I mean, and I know that we're moving quick here.
I think we can see that Derek is a man who lives on the edge, and so if you want an honest answer to your question, this is the place for it. I'm actually curious, just sort of as a conference organizer, how has the feedback been, from your event as you put it out there and then saw this huge response, and then now are growing bigger each year?
So bigger each year. I didn't get to that in the earlier part of the story, but so the book, for those of you that just joined, Feedback Loops, Voices of All Day DevOps, we capture in blogs as well as in what ends up as chapters in this book each year. I'll get it in front of the camera and remind me to talk about Bobby later, the kid on the cover of the book. But we host this conference every year called All Day DevOps. It runs for 24 hours. This year it's November 12th. We'll have 180 speakers. We summarize many of their talks in this 278-page book on all different subjects, from SRE to CI/CD to DevSecOps to cultural transformation to a bunch of other stuff. so that you can read through. They're all fairly short chapters, like 3 to 5 pages. And so as part, I saw Mauricio's The Purple Pen Inching Forward. That's awesome. I'll need to look for a purple pen. It's hilarious. Or maybe if I mix the blue and the red, I can get purple. It's freaking hilarious. So in terms of is it catching on? So we had 39,000 people participate in All Day DevOps last year. So yes, it has caught on. That initial dream that I was telling you about, like why we did All Day DevOps in the first place, that we meet 2 people from Wells Fargo at at the conference, and they're like, yeah, we have like 500 people in our DevOps practice and we can't send all of them to DevOps days or, whatever conference it is that we're at. Last year we had 4,000 people from State Farm participate in the conference. So they literally said, look, this is a free conference. It's on all day. It covers all these topics. We want to train our employees on what DevOps is, have an opportunity for them to participate. So literally everyone effectively take the day off of work to watch online. When they were back in their offices, they were doing viewing parties. So they would have like the cafeteria area blocked off, viewing screens set up where they had hundreds of employees watching in different areas. And this year we have, anyone can see this if they go to the All Day DevOps site. But one of the cool things that we've done, and this is in the top nav part of the menu. I can share my screen, right?
Mm-hmm. You should be able to, yeah.
Okay, so let's do this. So
hey, nice.
Okay, so this is on the All Day DevOps site. We have this thing called Club 20. You see, State Farm has 1,000 people signed up. Macquarie in Australia has 200 people signed up. PepsiCo has almost 200. Northrop Grumman has 143. But we've made an agreement with the community to basically say, if you get 20 people from your organization signed up, we will put you on this Club 20 list. And so we have a whole bunch of people that are just like an internal advocate from their organization that says, hey, I want to get on this list. Can we get a bunch of people signed up for the conference? And we have people like my friend, Sean Porras. He's over at Verizon Media. And he's like, Derek, I looked at the Club 20 list and we're not on it this year. How many people do we have signed up? Like, Sean, I just looked and you have like 6 people signed up. Like I've been telling everyone to register for this. I want to get us on the list. And so then another guy who his company is on the list, Leon from Keurig Dr. Pepper, he had, where are they on the list? They have 43 people signed up. So he says, Sean, if you can get 20 people signed up to get Verizon Media on the list this year, I'll send you 20 Keurig Dr. Pepper t-shirts. Right? It's like incentives. So they're like gamifying this whole thing within the community to get themselves on the list. But it's like, it seems so easy to get 20 people to register for a conference from your company or whatever. But like, engineers aren't necessarily the best marketers, right? So they're like, I'm just going to tell my team. And of course, everyone's going to sign up. And it's like, I don't know. Bob wants us to sign up for something. I don't know what it is. So I'm not going to do it. And then they're like, I just sent out a whole big email to our big team. We should have more people. I'm like, you have 5 people registered. Like they're not listening to you.
Yeah, but engineers are not good marketers. That's a truth.
Try and get the CIO to send out a message or something like that, to the team. But we've seen that. Like I have a friend, Sumit Agarwal. He's at Broadridge Financial in New Jersey, and he's been involved in the conference since year 2. runs our cultural transformations track. He also helps organize DevOps Days New York City. He had the CIO of Broadridge Financial send out a note to say, hey, everyone should register for All Day DevOps. And literally in one day, I want to say they had like 275 people register to be a part of the conference. But this is where, like, when we started off, exactly what we wanted to do. Like, who could have imagined someone saying, hey, I work at a large enterprise like State Farm Insurance, and we're going to take 4,000 people to a DevOps conference this year. Like, think
Just
about
wouldn't
it.
have made
Like,
any sense.
would you want to work for that company, right? What do you do for your engineers? What do you do for your DevOps people, like, to help them learn? It's like, well, we give everyone the day to go to All Day DevOps every year. And like last year we had 4,000. You what? Like, I can barely get 3 of us to go to DevOps Days Raleigh and, you know, participate in that. And you got 4,000. Like, maybe I want to go to places where people are investing in DevOps education as part of that. So we really, like, it's cool to see it play off on the Club 20 list, because this is where we can actually measure, are we making a difference in the reality? And I think we have like 42 companies on the list now. By the time we hit the conference date, so we're like 3-4 weeks away, we'll have 180 companies on this list. Wow. It gets big, as a lot of people don't register for virtual things until the last minute.
So I'm kind of curious, like, separately from the numbers, you know, you have this virtual conference that you've been organizing for years, as well as the survey, as well as this book. And since so much interaction is happening virtually with your book as well, I'm guessing, do you have any, like, have you received any feedback from people who have attended the conference or read the book and, you know, actually put into practice changes in their organizations?
I don't have a specific story, but I do.
I'm putting you on the spot here. I apologize.
Yeah, no, I do get messages from people like on LinkedIn and stuff saying, hey, Derek, I got a copy of the book. I read it. It's awesome. But they don't call out like, I read chapter 42 and showed it to my CIO, and, you know, then things totally change from there. But we do have feedback from people that participate in the conference that we end up meeting at live conferences. Like, you know, like I'm on air 24 hours, as well as Mark and a number of the others. And then we'll go to DevOps World, or, you know, CloudBees, Jenkins World, or a DevOps Days, and people will come up and be like, you're the guy that, like, does the All Day DevOps thing, right? And we start talking about it. And I remember one guy from Pitney Bowes is like, hey, Derek, it's nice to meet you in person. We've had viewing parties at Pitney Bowes every year since you started All Day DevOps. And we have, like, our office in Istanbul, our office in Cologne, Germany, our office in, you know, New York and Dallas. Like, each of them has a viewing party internally, and you've changed the way that we do DevOps education internally at our companies. And we've set up our own internal, like, DevOps summit or whatever, but we kind of base it on the way that you do All Day DevOps. You know, we do it like on Zoom kind of thing. We have Slack as a discussion channel for everyone involved in the conference. Switching back to blue for those of you keeping track. So there are those kind of feedback points on, you've helped us learn in a different way. Or like, we're a large company and we set aside time to do this. Like, this company Altus, this communications company in Portugal, they have a US office. Every year they're like back with, we're a viewing party. We've got, you know, a rallying cry around this. FedEx has a large, you know, base of participants every year that are like, yeah, we just put it on the calendar every year. Like, we know this is a conference that we can all go to. We have the budget to do it because it's free. no one has to travel, so we can block off the calendars. And so yeah, it's fun to meet those people in person, because at the same time I'm like, yeah, we got 39,000 people to register for this thing. Excuse me while my book stacks are getting too big. Don't want them to fall over. But you like, I hear 39,000 people. Well, I never met those people in person. And when you run across the people, in person, and they share these stories of like, you've helped my DevOps education like for the last 4 or 5 years, right? It's like, wow, you're a person. Like, this is the one thing with virtual conferences, unlike the physical ones, is you don't have that hallway track of like meeting someone face to face. It's just like, oh, I saw Derek online. He was on some Zoom with David, and they were talking about the books, and he was signing stuff, and I was trying to figure out what's on his bookshelf back there. Picture from his kid. So I feel like I know him, but he has no idea that I exist out here, right? So it's pretty cool when we go to the physical conferences and make those connections.
That's awesome. I'm kind of curious. So, I mean, you've talked about, running the virtual conference, you've talked about the book, and you've talked about some of the other things you're involved in that, people can get involved in, like the report. Do you have like day-to-day work that's, still in DevOps, Devsecops, or are you, totally focused on education right now?
No, I actually have a day job.
Okay, making me feel very unproductive.
This is just the fun part of what I do. But a good part of what I spend time on in the year is what I presented on earlier today at All Things Open, which was this State of the Software Supply Chain report, where we're researching high performance development organizations and what practices make the difference between low performers and high performing organizations. And it's really more about spending time researching that, understanding what people are doing, and then educating the community at large as to what these best practices are. So kind of similar in a way to what Dora and the State of DevOps reports we're doing, what Nicole and Jez and Jean and others involved in that we're doing as part of my day job, not organizing conferences, but doing that. And there's also part that's part of that, and this was involved in the presentation earlier in the day, is studying what adversaries are doing. So the element of DevOps that I spend more time in is DevOps or Devsecops. So where you're building more security into automated pipelines, where that can make a difference, how you can do it earlier in the shift left mentality, but also it's security is an ongoing thing. So you need it across the dev life cycle. You can see, I'm going to point down to there's like the stack of books. We made some progress there. I'm not just signing the same book over and over. So it's interesting to go and work with organizations to kind of consult with them on what practices make sense. What do you implement in terms of security practices in a DevOps pipeline? And there's a whole host of different things that you can do in that regard. But I think where one of the things that I brought up earlier, and I continue to bring this up every chance that I get, is a lot of people focus on, if we're going to pursue DevOps, that can improve the velocity of our development practice. We can get more valuable features or products to market faster than our competitors in this space. And in the realm of DevSecOps, the important thing for people to understand is, for security, you're only looking at security investments because you have adversaries. And if you say like, we've implemented this DevOps practice and we used to release software twice a year, and now we're releasing it twice a month, right? So it's like, applause to you, things have gotten better. I'm sure your employees are happier there. But in the application security realm, when you look at adversary behavior, the average adversary can breach your application environment with new vulnerabilities disclosed in under 3 days. If you can release new versions or updates to your software once every 2 weeks, your adversaries have an 11-day lead on like, new vulnerabilities out today. Our process says we can get new code into production in 2 weeks following our standard automated DevOps practice, right? But the adversaries can do it in 3. You're focused on internal metrics and benchmarks and not the external factors that matter. And it, in some cases, when you're just looking at engineering practices, like, hey, we're getting faster. When you look at security practices, you have to measure that against what are your adversaries able to do? Because if it took adversaries a month to break in, but you can deploy and change the environment every 2 weeks, you're safe, right? But
yeah, that's enough time to print a new box for your software, to ship it to the store. I mean,
yep.
If it could be a month, that would be great. Well, but then I guess there would be a bit less interest in your field. We just have a few minutes left. I was curious if you could, and again, this is putting you on the spot, so feel free to just choose your own question here. But
Yeah.
tell us, what are the hot topics going to be in the next year in the DevSecOps field?
Well, I certainly don't know all of them, but a lot of growing interest coming in chaos engineering is certainly something that's getting a lot more attention, where Netflix started the journey with Chaos Monkey and all the other Simian Army components on how do you introduce changes in the environment to see how resilient the environment is. I think as part of that, SRE practices are getting more attention and able to be going more mainstream. I think this is an area that people are still wanting to learn a whole lot more about. If you're in one of the camps on SRE and I want to learn more, Dave Renton, 2 years ago, I think at All Day DevOps, and all of our All Day DevOps talks are still online, gave an amazing keynote on SRE. He's a manager at Google. Fabulous. If you look up Dave Renton, All Day DevOps, you'll find it easily on Google. But that is getting a lot more attention. I think that the other thing that is coming into play that is a change. So 10 years ago, and I have the book sitting over there, Jez Humble and Dave Farley wrote Continuous Delivery. So there was this concept of like, if we're going to do continuous delivery, what do we need to know? What do we need to know about what we're building, how we're building, how we test it, how we maintain quality, how we build quality in, build security in, how do you architect your environment, and so forth. That concept worked well when you're moving from waterfall to something more continuous and higher velocity. But there is a new CD that is continuous deployment, right? And it's not just about can you get changes across the finish line faster, but if you're going into these cloud-based, cloud-native environments for your applications that are always on, then what does continuous deployment mean of the changes within these environments? That it's not just the delivery of we got it across the finish line, but deployment account for literally everything, infrastructure, everything whoever your cloud provider is, everything in terms of user changes and monitoring that. So I think it's a broader definition of what started out as the continuous delivery movement, but I think that continuous deployment is something that people don't understand well enough. There are companies like Harness that are backing that. On the chaos engineering side, I know Verica is doing a lot of good work with some of the people that started the chaos engineering movement within Netflix. A couple of my friends also, James Wickett and Karthik Gaywad and Ernest Mueller, they were three of the people that started All Day DevOps with us 5 years ago. They ran the, they've run the modern infrastructure track for years from Austin. So good friends of mine keeping track, but yeah, that's a little bit of what I, foresee, but I'm not a fortune teller, so I, can't say what.
All right, so you heard it here first. Derek just
That's
told you
right,
exactly
that's right.
what's going to happen for the next 12 months.
When I'm at All Things Open next year, you can come up to me and say, you predicted that thing that was going to happen and never took off. Like,
But you did get a book.
just in the hole with me. Like,
Awesome.
you
Well,
can sign a book, but you can't predict the future with anything.
we're right at 15 minutes to the hour. So I think at this point, if nobody has any other questions, we'll close it up. But I just wanted to thank you, Derek, for sharing your knowledge with us, sharing your books with us. Also, I have Derek's Twitter posted in the chat and a link
Sweet.
to
That's me.
the all-day Devops Conference, which obviously you should sign up for.
November 12th. We always say sign up yourself and encourage your entire team to sign up. Get your team on Club 20 so we can put your logo up on the site. And then people will see that and say, wow, they got 20 people to work. They must be investing in education of their DevOps pros there. Maybe I should go and work there. And, some great promotional opportunity for anyone's company that wants to participate. So David, thank you for being such a great host and chatting with me while I'm signing the books. And
no, I'm looking forward to the conference. And, as opposed to like a Tupperware party, I'm sure everybody that you recommended to will enjoy it. So yeah. It's definitely a good thing to recommend.